what's up, fam? Rafael Cortez back on the CEO Post podcast, where you get the real, the raw, and the mind of entrepreneurship. We are sitting down with Mr. Gabriel DaSilva. He is known as the at a level guy because of his extensive expertise in like big boy renovations. I'm just gonna call them big boy renovations. I mean, they're not your typical remodel project. They're pretty much overhauls. You come in and then you do something massive with them. You have a solid track record in that you've been part of hundreds of deals. Right now, you're in the New York area and you're crushing it every single day. We're talking right before we jumped on camera about other stuff that you for some reason decided to take on, like the 75 hard challenge and all that stuff. So I want to tap into the mindset, right? First off, the mindset that it's required to get yourself to that point and that level of performance. And then really break down like the strategic side of how to build and scale and systemize a business like the one you have right now, because it's not, I mean, it's one of the most complicated strategies, I think, in real estate investments. So welcome to the show, brother. Thanks for taking the time and being here.
Thanks for having me on, man. I'm excited to chop it up and bring value to your audience and unpack my journey and help however I can. I think the lead in on the intros, it's powerful, right? Like that's the thing that we need to focus on more so than anything else, is like the mental piece, the mindset piece before the systems and processes piece. And for me, that was grit at the beginning, just the grit to get in there and grind and hustle. But like our friend Tom Kroll says, that's a season, not a lifestyle. Yeah, and absolutely. So after that grit, you have to just become disciplined. You need to be systematic, and then you can build a real business. Otherwise, you just got a really high paying job, or sometimes a really low paying job.
Yeah, no, absolutely. 100%. It's that's the thing. So we begin with the hustle mentality, right? And I think the hustle is going to get us to from point A to point B, but we still have the whole ABCs to go through. And it's required at the beginning. There's got to be a drive, right? That might be financial. You may be chasing after the dollars. I know that was my situation when I first got started as an entrepreneur. I was after the dollar, right? After a while, though, you evolve into something else, and then you start looking and wondering. You become aware that there's a purpose out there, and there's other things that we can start doing with stuff, and then we get creative with the business, and it becomes this. It morphs into a almost like a playground. That's how I see it, and it's really cool. But yeah, absolutely, like the hustle is going to get you through a stage, and then everything else has to be systematic. You have to think business, right? Not the hustle mentality is it's I think it's a beautiful principle, but it's not something that's sustainable. So
it shouldn't be. I mean, it's a way to get you to say it gets you to 100 grand or maybe even 250, like if that's what you're looking to achieve. And then you got some cash, and in my part of the country, that's not even really that much money, but in other parts of the country, you live pretty well on that. But like you hustle and grind there, and then what? Like, then it needs to shift. It's got to be about impact. It's got to be about because then you're going to need people. Someone's got to come alongside you. So you have to be able to really lead. You have to be able to cast a vision and get people to galvanize around that vision. And then you got to put processes and systems in place. And then you got to be consistent. It's hard to grind. I started in the food service industry, 16-hour days in food service. You can only physically do that for so long. I would know, right? My partner and I had heart attacks in our early 30s as a result of logging these kinds of hours. Wow. So that's not sustainable. And that's why what Tom says about it, it's a season, like really resonates with me. You got to get through that. Sure. Log the hours, do what you need to do, then start thinking strategically about how you're going to build a real business. And then, we can focus on discipline too, because it ties a lot into 75 hard and Ironman and all these other things that I do kind of offline.
Well, I think it's a composition. When you start looking at the overall development, of an entrepreneur, right? It's easy to lose track of the different areas. I mean, the personal, the financial, the relationships, and all that stuff. If you get carried away in one, everything else is going to be off balance. But I think the beauty of this is that we have the opportunity to level up, and as opposed to seeing as a staircase on the professional and success area, right? We can look at the whole thing as an elevator. What happens? Like you're elevating your relationships, you're elevating your mindset, you're elevating your business, and then success really becomes a byproduct. But I was doing a meditation yesterday, and it was talking about it was guided meditation, and the comment was on filling your cup, right? You fill your cup first, but I think it goes across, on the skill set side. I mean, to me, that's how it resonates. Skills. You fill your cup on skills. Now you have a cup that you can share with your team. You fill your cup on mindset. Now you have, a cup of mindset that you can share with the team. But I mean, it's and then what happens? Like, you feel like you want to achieve a little more and tap into crazy shit like 75 hard, which
yeah. You
insane.
say cups, I say buckets, and it's the same concept, right? Like the cups are the buckets concept. I have faith, family, fitness, finances, and freedom. Those are my 5 buckets.
Can you
Balance,
say
it's right, sure. It's faith, family, fitness, finances, and freedom. Those are my 5 buckets. And balance is a bit of an illusion because you're never going to be in perfect harmony and perfect balance. There will be seasons in your life where you need to really dig into your faith because you might have lost a parent or something. There might be times where your back's against the wall, you lost your biggest client. You better dig into your finances or that business is going to go away. My thing is to be conscious of it, be pouring in, be filling those cups in parallel. Like to your analogy of the elevator, I'm trying to fill my buckets in parallel. What I know is that I need to get around A players. I need to get around people that are successful and know how to do the thing it is that I'm looking to do in each one of those buckets, because the same person is not like, he's not going to be the one that brings you along in the finance bucket and the faith bucket, or like the fitness guy is not necessarily your freedom mentor. And so I would advocate for your audience to kind of think of it in that way and compartmentalize it. And then just say, okay, what season am I in? This is something I spend a lot of time with my students on because they get hard on themselves that they're not elevating in all 5 areas at the same time. And like the elevator will catch up. Just fill that bucket because now's the time this is the season you're in. And then you can go and fill the other one because you got that one where it needs to be. And so I love those 2 analogies. It looks like, we think about it the same way. We just use different terms.
Right, and completely agree, man. You said something very important, and you were talking about balance. It is hard. It may feel daunting and feel like it's almost impossible to balance growth that way. But if you like, I've taken a step back and I look at it as counterbalance. I have the tendency to drive, you get crazy about something, right? Get crazy about a project. I mean, like I'm working on one particular specific project right now that's drawing a lot of my attention, and I'm almost obsessed, right? I get excited and get obsessed and like rah, 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 rah. And then what happens, the health side, oh, you know what, I'll skip a workout. The relationships, oh, you know what, I'll call that, call them, call my brother, my sister, I'll call them tomorrow or next week. I'm too busy right now. And that's a bad thing. For me, what I've found is I'm embracing the principle of counterbalance. Like I have the tendency to go deep head first into whatever I'm focused on. I need something to pull me back out. Yeah, I mean, counterbalance has been huge asset in the process of filling out the different buckets. Otherwise, I'd be really good at one, but then just completely suck at the rest of them. That's not
well, I mean, I'll be as transparent as I can be with your audience. I was hyper focused on the finance bucket. It was at the top of that list. If you notice now, I say faith, family, fitness. That's the order of importance to me right now. That's the season I find myself in. I needed to, because finances were excellent. Business was growing. We were employing people. We were doing big deals, fat spreads. But physically, I was as bad as I was when I had the restaurant, ages ago. I wasn't training. I wasn't doing anything. I was eating like shit. My family, like, when I saw them, all I talked about was business. Like, I wasn't engaging with them on a level that even applied, right? Like, they don't do what we do. They're not entrepreneurs. And I'm just bulldozing them with this stuff. And faith, forget it. Like, I couldn't remember the last time I sat for a meditation or prayed. So, I had to counterbalance. I had to get out of that season for a bit, turn things off for a little while. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you're financially in a position that you can do that, like, that's kudos to you for the good work that you've done to get there. And then, like, go focus in some other areas. Don't completely neglect that bucket, but like, shift your focus to the things that matter for you now, for your family now.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And it's hard, man. We went, straight into the rabbit hole. It's hard to to have the awareness to do it. I always talk about awareness, right? It's once you have it, once it hits you, once you hear it somewhere, that, like, now you're aware. You're aware that you have different areas, that elevate at the same time. It's not just the one. It's not the one with the cash, right? Necessarily. For me, I know that's what it was at the beginning. Result inevitably was burnout within the 5-6 years of starting my first business. Like, I'm completely burned out in my mid 20s. And it's like, what the hell? I'm 26 years old, burned out. The fuck is that? Like, there's something going on there that I'm doing wrong, right?
To that point, something that's been powerful for me, I alluded to it a little bit earlier, is in each one of those cups or buckets, finding a circle of people that will admonish you, that will really hold you accountable. In a sense, only you can hold yourself accountable, really, but like getting in a circle with people who are strong in their faith, who are strong in their fitness, and having those people call you out, like, hey, I haven't seen you at the gym in a while. Like, is everything okay? When was the last time you seem tense? When was the last time you sat for a meditation? I can sense it in your voice that you're really tense. Like, finances, like, hey, like, I referred you a lead and I found out you haven't called yet. What's going on? Right? Like, those are the people I want in my sphere, because they're the ones that are going to hold me accountable. Like I said, only you can hold you accountable. Accountability, that's amateur bullshit. We know that. It's about consistency and discipline, but still, like, I want you to call me out. If you hear me say a thing that I'm going to do for 3 weeks on end, say, hey, like, you've been saying that for 3 weeks, bro. Like, what's going on?
Stop talking about it.
Yeah.
Action in it. I mean, massive imperfect action. It's also one of the things that it's one of the mantras that we have at Wholesaling Inc. And it makes perfect sense. Like, that's the solution to 99% of the problems. The other one is sleep. You know what I mean? Give me 1 second. I think I pushed the wrong button on that AC unit, and it's 20 degrees right now. All right, we'll see if that works. I'm back. Sorry about that. So, but yeah, it's absolutely, like, you gotta have, you have to surround yourself with the right people. And this is one thing also that kind of, while we're on that topic, and I want to go back to your personal story and kind of do from the beginning of the podcast. I mean, we just kind of bypassed everything, but it's one thing that's important. I see a lot of comments and people saying that, well, if you want to level up, you gotta get rid of the people that don't, they don't think like you. I think there's a fallacy in that. There's some truth to it. I agree, but I think there's also a fallacy, because the person who's going to help you fill up your emotional bucket may not have an entrepreneur mentality, right? However, they may be, they may have that kindness that that you're craving at a soul level. I mean, I think we have, and like you said, there's different people who are going to help you through different areas of our lives. The trainers may not be the freedom coach.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that stark differentiation is important for people, because they want to model something, and then they're like, I'm going to model that guy or that gal. Well, don't model everything about them, because they're human and they're flawed. I'm flawed. Like, you certainly shouldn't be modeling me in every element. Like, if you want to learn how to do specific things and you find me believable in the sense that I've done that thing numerous times and I can articulate to you how you can model it and do it yourself, like, then for sure follow me in that sense. But like, to your point, like my coach, my trainer, my triathlon coach is not the person who I want to tap when I have questions or challenges around my business. It's just not, that's not her role. And like my pastor is a great person to speak to when it comes to interpersonal communication and things that I'm struggling with in my faith, but he's not the guy I'm going to ask about my fitness. Like, he just isn't. Although he's a fit dude, it's just not where I would go for that piece of advice.
Yeah, exactly. And it takes a while. I mean, it takes a while to build up that that power team per se, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, that brings me back. I mean, tell us how you got started. You came from I mean, you have background in financing. You have an extensive background I mean, university degrees and all kinds of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
I made the comment earlier that not a lot of people who are in the real estate business end up, going the long route on, with education and degrees and masters and bachelor's and all kinds of stuff. So tell me about that, how you started there, and then you ended up pivoting into saying, what am I doing my own thing?
Yeah. I was thinking a lot on this as I hit my 10-year anniversary as an entrepreneur. I started digging back to like my childhood, even like crushing aluminum cans and then selling them for scrap and baseball cards and lemonade and things like that. So there was always a little bit of that in me, but I grew up, I'm a second generation builder, we'll say. My dad worked and still to this day at times will work with his hands. It's just, I grew up in that environment, and I was always being told and like taught, don't do that. Don't work with your hands, work with your mind. I want to see you wear a suit to work every day, get a job. Right. And so for me, that forced my hand as a young person in education. I just said, okay, I have to get degrees. I got to go to school. Like, what a fallacy that's proven to be. At this point, we know that that's all bullshit. But I went on and I got the 3 degrees. I had a bachelor's, then I got my MBA, then I got a second master's, all that while working in corporate finance. And what I come to realize now is that decade in corporate finance, I was just going to school because I hated corporate finance so bad, and they were willing to pay for school. And for me, school was just another challenge. As an entrepreneur, you're always looking for the way over, around, under the wall. Well, school is the same thing. I'm not a great student. I'm not special in any way, especially academically. So I just had to figure out how to win in school. And I did that, and I got all those degrees, and ultimately wound up saying, this isn't for me. There's a whole host of stories I could tell, like when that switch flipped for me and I said, I got to get out of here. I'm dying a slow death in this cubicle. And if I don't make a move now, I could be like the guy sitting across from me in 30 years. Like I just couldn't see myself there. And like I said, there were a couple of things that happened, and we can go into those stories if you want, but that's what prompted me to take like massive imperfect action and get out of there.
So, and there's usually, some type of trigger, right? You get fed up. Some people go their whole lives being fed up, but not taking that first step. I mean, and how many times have you heard it where, no, I got to have all my shit figured out. I got to have it all, the whole blueprint, laid out, and they plan for years before, taking that first step. Oftentimes the first step is, it's irrelevant because everything changes, right?
Yes.
And then now they're back, to square zero. Now they plan for another 5 years, 3 years, 2 years, whatever. And they stay there. I think the principle of massive imperfect action it's really what opens up the possibilities. So you decided to jump, do something, and then, I mean, really you call it massive imperfect action, like the same way. Like, what did that look like?
Yeah, well, for me, I signed a lease. A buddy had just gotten back from a wedding in LA, and the health food craze had taken over. Like, California's obviously, ages ahead of us on the East Coast with regard to that. And he came back with this concept. He's like, we need to do something like this here. And I looked out the window of my cubicle of my building and saw a vacant, storefront, and said, I know exactly where we'll open it. And so we went about signing that lease. I still had a job, but I was convinced that was it. That was the first step. And I signed on. It was a 10-year lease. Like, we put our ass on the line with that lease. It was, that was it. That we weren't going back. We made that commitment. That was massive imperfect action because we didn't know anything about food service. We didn't know anything about building restaurants. So, and we went on to do that and open it. And we ran it jointly for 4 years. Then I sold to him. He went on to run it for a few more, and then he sold it. But that's what it looked like. And I'll just tell one of the quick stories, like what prompted that imperfect action, because there's a lot of people listening that are stuck in the cube, and they'll stay stuck there because their why isn't big enough yet. They haven't suffered enough. And so I'm in recovery, and that's something they say a lot, right? Like, when you've suffered enough, you'll get clean. Well, same thing. When you've suffered enough in corporate, when you watched enough of your dreams die, like, then you'll take action. And so for me, it was one, the trigger was my grandfather had gotten sick and my family was going to see him. We didn't know if he'd be around, and like, we're blessed he's still around. How incredible that is. But at the time, I had to ask permission if I can take time off to fly to go see him. And we didn't know if he'd make it. And I was thinking, what the fuck is this? I got to ask someone else if I can go see my grandfather before he passes. Like, we thought he was going to go. And to me, that just felt like, at a soul level, that felt wrong, because that person had to go ask another person. And I'm over here stamping TPS reports. Like, what am I doing? What am I doing that's changing the world in this cube? Nothing, And so that was one of a few things that happened over the course of, 3 to 6 months that really like put the stamp on it. And I said, I got to go. And I'll be stuck here forever if I don't pull the ripcord now.
Yeah. I mean, that's, again, it goes back to the principle that you have on freedom, right? Mm-hmm. Like, having the ability to come in and then do or not do, but understand that you're betting on yourself. I mean, 10-year lease on something right out of the gate. I mean, that's huge. It's not something that most people would do, but then again, most people they don't have similar results. They don't, the level of freedom, the level of challenges that you have right now, that by intentional challenges, mm-hmm. by design, keep you pushing forward. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that really builds up an entrepreneur. Makes it all, I think at the end of the day, makes it all work.
Entrepreneurs see opportunity in everything. And so not you and I, we're entrepreneurs, right? Investors or people on the sidelines, and the layperson sees risk in everything. And they're like, there's a 50-50 chance you're going to make it. That is absurd. There's like a 99% chance I'm going to make it, because I'll bleed out of my eyes before I quit. And if I'm going to keep banging into this wall will give, or I'll find a way up, under, or around it. So it's, signing long leases and things like that, taking on, burdensome debt, that shit doesn't scare me, because like, I know what I'm willing to do. I know the ends I'm willing to go to make this thing work, whatever this thing is. When I say that with passion. Like, I will bleed out of my eyes to make my investors whole. I don't care what it takes. So lend me money, because like, I'm confident I'm going to pay you back. And that's that level of certainty is, you can influence people with that. And so you have to genuinely believe it, though.
Well, absolutely. Well, I think it's the power of the truth behind it. You know what I mean? Like, you're gonna, it's like the saying, I mean, it's almost cliche, right? But I'll be the guy that dies on the treadmill. Yeah, and that's really what it takes. Like, are you willing to be the guy that dies on the treadmill? Yeah. Then okay. Then what's the problem? Like, people.
How far will you go when the distance is unknown? That's I'm with you. I mean, that's grit, and then that's a willingness to, that's awareness, like you were saying earlier. That's character. That's just knowing, like, at a soul level, what you're called to do. And again, that transitions into my, my life and fitness, and being committed to doing these things that most people think are impossible. That they're not. It's just, I just committed to doing it.
Right. Consistency and tenacity, putting in the work. I mean, that's gonna beat talent like any day. Mm-hmm. Talent is good, but if you don't move a finger, like, it's just gonna sit there. I mean, how many talented people do we know that, they're craving for that level of success? They could very well do it. You're looking at, something. I've come across people where I'm seeing them like, man, this guy is so freaking genius.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Sometimes, I have people like that come to me for advice, and like I should be asking you stuff. Like, all you're missing is the action behind it. I mean,
the whole knowledge is power versus knowledge is like potential power. The application of knowledge is power. Like, all you need to do is go on any university campus, and you'll see plenty of knowledge, and you'll see no power. Like, those people have very little influence. They sit there and they're comfortable and they're brilliant. And kudos to them for being brilliant, but like, are they influencing? Are they impacting? I can remember the name of one professor, and I have 3 degrees. So that means I spent a lot of freaking time in classrooms, people. Like, and I can remember one man's name, because he can impact, and he influenced me, and he changed how I looked at how I do business now. And at the time, I was just basically a kid trying to understand what business even was.
Yeah.
So I couldn't agree more with that.
Yeah. We have the opportunity to create a vehicle for impact. And I mean, you can turn that into a sweatshop if you want to, or you can turn it into a space of inspiration and empowerment for your team. If that happens, something's going to come out of that ripple effect. Somebody else is going to, I mean, maybe I've had it where people leave the company and then they start their own stuff, but you know, the catalyst makes me feel all warm and cozy because somehow, some way they started with me and now they're doing their own thing. You know what I mean? So
that's the ultimate mark of a leader. In my opinion, I've had that happen with my team. I want to see them fly. And when they're ready and they seek to go out on their own, I don't try and gobble them back in. If they're ready, I empower them to go and do their own thing. And when they do, and when they start leading other people, it's the true mark of a leader. Leaders create successors, right? They don't just create rank and file employees that stamp things and push things through and do phone calls. And like, that's not a leader, that's a boss. A leader is a different thing.
Yeah, and it's the I think it's the old way of doing business too. I mean, now it's just as important as the revenue. I think to have a sense of belonging, to feel like you matter, to feel like you're making an impact. I think at a collective level, I mean, there's a lot of people just awakening from that. Like, holy shit, there's more to life. There's more purpose. It's not just, you know, people check out really like on the. I know a lot of people that check out on their 9 to 5. Engagement is, I mean, if you want to look at statistics and all that stuff, national engagement at the workplace, I think it's around 32% last time I checked. Like actual engaged employees, 32%. I mean, that's ridiculous. It means that people don't like the shit they're doing, right? And I think there's a lot more people just waking up to that and understanding there's a lot more potential to do things and create things and matter and belong and make an impact and feel warm and cozy when you do something good. Than just getting that, you know, bi-weekly
paycheck.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they pay you, right? Like, that's what a check is. Yeah. You know, a check is it's how they pay you to give up on your dreams.
Right.
Like, nobody dreams of, like, I was working in a 8x8 brown cube with brown floors, a brown garbage can. Like, everything was designed to stifle creativity and keep me in this little box, literally a cube box.
Brown.
Was it? Yeah, it was shit brown, right? Like, and there's an image of me sitting in this shit brown cube wearing brown pants and a brown shirt. And I remember that, like, that's the image that's seared into my mind. Like, I will never go back. Like, once you see the other side, and the fifth bucket we didn't talk much about, but the freedom bucket, once you achieve the, you know, true freedom, and we're not talking about financial freedom, we're talking about freedom of purpose. I have the freedom to impact people, to create leaders, to serve my sellers, to serve my buyers. You know, we're in the real estate space now, so we do a lot of that. But again, and I hope this is serving people. I hope people are listening to this, and if they are on the fence, I hope this is what gets them to, you know, take some action and shift. You know, the choice is yours.
Absolutely, we all have a choice. It begins with a little bit of curiosity, then some real wonder, and then it just becomes a matter of, okay, I'm uncomfortable. Something you get fed up, and like, we have the ability to take a choice, to make a choice on the type of life that we want to design. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to happen overnight. I mean, it's but that guy did it in 2 days.
Yeah, an overnight success, 10 years in the making.
Yeah.
I
didn't know this guy last year. Now he's got all these followers and all the, like, you know, success. And like, that fucker has been working on that thing for the last 20 years. Like,
yeah, he just showed up on your radar today, but you didn't see all the hours he logged. I mean, triathlon is a perfect analogy to this. It's so analogous, right? Like, you show up on race day and you look around at the people that are racing alongside you, you know, I mean, I'll get emotional talking about it. You know, these people logged some serious hours to get there. Nobody just shows up for a 12-hour race not having put in the time. You know, these people were at the Y swimming at 5 a.m. You know, they were running at 9:30 in the dark. Like, you know, they did what they needed to do to get there. And so, again, I know we were focusing a lot on mindset and what it takes to do this, and it's really intense. But, like, seek discomfort, take some action, surround yourself with other like-minded individuals who can help you get where you want to go. Fire the naysayers, like, and they might be your friends or they might be family members. You need to stay away from them when it comes to that type of stuff. Talk to them about family, talk to them about faith, but do not talk to them about finances. Do not talk to them about your future freedoms.
Right. Yeah, I think those conversations, you need to know where you're going to have those conversations. And the people that you're going to have them with, right? One other thing that just keeps kind of, popping up in my radar right now, you have a really good connection between mind and body. I mean, we're going back to the mindset, but you're pushing yourself. I feel like you use, and I do the same thing, but I use my body as a vehicle for my mind to be sane. If my mind is tired, I work on my body. If my body's tired, I work on my mind, right? And that's just kind of how it goes. It's the beautiful relationship between the two, pushing yourself to the limits, triathlons and 75 hard and I mean your body to these new places, right? New spaces. It rewires your thinking. It really rewires your neurons and like the fortitude that we have at a mental level. Like when you have challenges, somehow, some way, I know maybe people are not going to agree a lot on this, but if you push your body and you break a boundary per se that you have on the things that you believe you can do. I don't know, you do new max, you run an extra mile and you didn't get there and all that stuff. On the mindset stuff, the problems that you're able to handle, I mean that everything becomes easier. To me, using the body as a vehicle to increase the mental capability it's a tool. What's your take?
And you can't unsee the things. Like once you've done those things, you've set a new high watermark. That's a new barometer. That becomes your new default baseline. And you can't unsee that. Just like people are listening to this now, they can't unhear or unsee the things that they're being, that we're saying and sharing with them. With regard to the physical component, like I was not being impeccable with my word, right? The 4 agreements, John Miguel Ruiz, I believe the author, it's like, I was not being impeccable with my word. I was making and breaking promises to myself daily, like most of the people who are stuck in the cube do. Each time they say, I'm not going to eat that McDonald's on the way home. I'm going to go for a run tomorrow morning. I'm going to tell my boss that I want that raise. And then they know the second it comes out of their mouth that it's not true. And they continue to do that. And then they condition their nervous system to call themselves liars. And that's what I did for very long. Like I said, I'm in recovery. So for the better part of 2 decades, I did that. I kept making promises and breaking them to myself. It wasn't until I got disciplined and started saying my word matters, language matters. I don't say a thing that I don't mean anymore. I can't afford to. And and when you set these lofty physical goals, you know that you made a commitment, and now all the decisions that you need to make around that commitment are based on that commitment, not on how you feel. So I know I need to run a marathon after I ride a bike for 100 miles in a month, like a month and a half. So every decision I make around riding a bike or going for a run or what I put in my mouth, like those things are dependent on that commitment I made, not on how I feel in the moment, because I go out for runs every morning and I don't want to, right? Like it's not that I get up more excited than anyone listening to go for an 8-mile run. Like I don't even enjoy running. Like I enjoy the person that I become on this journey to run to this, lofty goal I've set. So yeah, we're going deep on mindset today. I hope this is really serving people.
Oh, absolutely, man. Absolutely. I mean, I think it's entrepreneurship. Yeah. We always, see the quotes, we see the memes, we see the, pursue your dreams and then all the rah stuff and everything, but really don't like it. You hardly ever get into the real conversations, into what it takes, into the nasty part of the mindset, like what it really takes, the breakdowns and the ups and the downs of going through a journey like this. So no, it's mindset is huge. So it's this is the mindset behind the man, right? Now you came from schooling background, you came from a cubicle, and then you jumped betting on yourself through a crazy 10-year lease decision, and then went to town on that. You had your first experience in business, and through that restaurant, which you didn't know much about. However, you're making, as this whole time is going by, you're taking massive imperfect action, and then you're 1 foot in front of the other, right? That's really how entrepreneurship works. When people become business owners and and people see it from outside of the like from the other side of the glass per se. They're like, oh, they have it all figured out. Like, no, you have the next hour figured out. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow. Maybe I get another stupid idea that might turn out to be awesome, and then that's a whole new project. It's a whole new journey. But that's the life of an entrepreneur, right? It's not about, we hardly ever have anything figured out. We just know that we can bet on ourselves. It's just, you've done that, phenomenal.
Being gritty is like, at the end of the day, I know that I'm going to be resourceful enough to do whatever it is that needs to be done. It's not about like tools and resources. Everyone thinks, well, he must have had access to some things that I didn't. Well, the truth is I was zeroed out when I sold the restaurant. So I started at zero. I went on to build what we've built now from there. And it was only because I was resourceful, not because I had access to resources. In fact, like, if there's one thing I'd say is I used to be of the belief that the life I live now was not meant for me. I don't have the right last name. I'm an immigrant. I didn't go to the Ivy League schools. I got all those degrees from a local community college, right? Like I just didn't think that I had the right last name and all these other things, right? But that's all bullshit. Like all I had to do was be resourceful, take action, one foot in front of the other. I know it's cliche, but like that's what entrepreneurship is. Every day I step up ready to get kicked in the teeth again. Some days I do, most days I don't. Thankfully now, at the beginning it was every day, but yeah, like that's what gets people there. And so I encourage them to take that first step. If you feel called, this calls to you, do it. Take the first step. Take that first imperfect, massive imperfect action. I'm not saying go burn the ships at your job right now if you have 3 kids to feed and a mortgage and 2 car payments. Like, let's be responsible. But beyond that, like you got to do a thing. And if COVID hasn't taught you that, I don't know what will.
Oh yeah. I mean, so many things have happened over the last 2 years, year and a half. It's insane. Like business models have shifted massively. I mean, if that doesn't tell you that nothing's insured, you're a false sense of security of being at a company for a long time, because I don't know, they won't fire me. Like, yeah, they will. Like,
yeah, they will.
Yeah, they will. You won't fire yourself. And I mean, I don't know. That's how I see it. Maybe a little bit of maybe a little bias there, but I don't know. That's my take on it, right? And I think that gives me that if there's any security out there, any blanket of security in terms of freedom and whatnot, I choose to put it on the resourcefulness.
What? Can I share one more story on that with regard to being fired? I haven't told this story in a long time, but I feel like it's so apropos. I was walking across the street, running late to that shit job in that brown cube I was telling you guys about. And
the brown clothes that day?
Yeah, I don't remember. I might have been. That day was like seared in my memory as well, because I went to step off the curb running from the parking lot to the building, and a woman grabbed me and pulled my shirt back. This woman was clearly an angel, and a bus goes flying by. Wow. So I'm getting the chills. So I nearly got hit by this bus, and I'm in a zombie. I'm like in a trance as I walk the rest of the way to the office, and I get to my cube and sit down, and I really thought, wow, if I had been hit by that bus, my life would have ended right there. This seat I'm sitting in would have been filled in a week. They would have mourned me for 1 week, and then someone else would be sitting in this seat, stamping TPS reports, doing Excel Muppet work, whatever dumb shit I was doing at the time. I mean, I hope that really, if you're listening to this and you feel that, that's the life you can leave behind if you feel called to, because that day, that was the first step for me. I never forgot that. And then when things happened with my grandfather, I told that story earlier, it just compounded. And that's when I ultimately, had to leave. But just think about that. They'll grieve you. But in a week or two, someone else will be sitting in that seat.
Yeah.
And that just goes to show how important the things you do are or are not.
I think the tendency to take ourselves too seriously sometimes gets in the way, right? Oh, I'm the person for this job. I can't let the company down. I can't do this. I can't do that. No, they'll find somebody else to do it. They have departments for that. It's called human resources.
Yeah.
There's somebody hired just to cover that problem when it comes up. So, I mean, I think not taking ourselves too seriously, it's maybe a good thing in that sense, right? Somebody else will come in, and then if you feel the responsibility, it's actually one of the things that I always say when I'm hiring somebody. Like, if at any point you feel like you're outgrowing the company, your position or whatever, let me know. If it's not here, I will make sure that I give you, whatever you need to be successful at your next, hire or experience or whatever you want to do, right? But I always make it clear, like it's not about keeping somebody confined. And at the end of the day, we all have a right for life. We all have a right to design the type of life that we want to live, right? Thankfully, we have that level of freedom where we're at. I mean, there's countries, there's places in the world where, I mean, it's a lot harder. It's easier said than done. But for us, the situation now is that we have the ability to complain. We have the ability to complain about politics. We have the ability to complain about healthcare. We have the ability to complain about fucking cancel culture and all kinds of crazy things out there. Why? Because we have the level of freedom. We're in good times. I mean, as a nation, if you look at historically, it's a space where we have the ability to do all that stuff. That means we also have the ability to create and design a life for us. So it's not taking.
If you want to, just to piggyback on that, if you want to hit people with something that's going to, sting again, because that's the theme we seem to be going with. It's like, hey, you have a moral obligation to do what is meaningful. Like, and that's not always what makes you happy. It's what creates meaning and purpose in your life and the lives of your children. So like and this is big, right? This is big. A lot of people don't want to carry this load. Entrepreneurs are built for it. We're like loaded on, like that's what we're designed for. But if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't want to hear anymore. I don't want to hear anymore. Well, you have to think about why you don't want to hear anymore, because you're smart. You're smart enough to know what I'm saying is true. And now that you can't unknow this. Now it's your responsibility. It's your moral obligation to do better for yourself, for your kids, for the world. And so like you want to set them the example, the die in the cube example, the dreams dying with you example. Like, no, you don't, Dad, you don't. So
Absolutely.
if you're listening, that's
don't lie to yourself. It's I think at the end of the day, we want what's best for our family, our loved ones, and I mean that's normally how it works, right? You were talking earlier, and I was going to mention this earlier, but being resourceful. I have this one thing. I teach a few principles to my kids. I have 3 kids, and my 14-year-old son, he's getting the entrepreneur bite. He comes into the office with me. I'll have him sit down and listen in on meetings and stuff like that. So he's just sucking, like he's absorbing everything, right? It's really cool. And he'll come at me with a problem, like something that's going on is, hey Dad, I want to buy this. Like, how can I, whatever. The one thing that I always throw back at him is figure it out. Like, I don't know, figure it out. If I say figure it out, now I put him in a mental state where he has to actually think about it, right? I'm not giving him the answer. I'm empowering him to think for himself. So he knows that if he can figure, out of 50% of that, he comes back to me with some type of solution. I'll help him out with the rest. But like, it's empowering, and it's also teaching them to be resourceful. And like, that's the like, now it's one of the coined phrases, it's thrown around at home. Like even from, my wife and my younger kid and my, stepdaughter, same thing. Like something happens, like, oh, figure it out. Like, but it's being resourceful and having that level of empowerment.
That's the greatest gift you could give them. I mean, that's the greatest gift you can give a child. Teach them to fish, encourage them to learn how to fish if you fish for them. And we were taken good care of. First generation immigrant parents have a way about them where they'll work themselves to death to make sure the kids are fed. That's just their nature. Most, not all. So I was blessed in that sense that I had a really supportive family. What I would have liked is if at an earlier age, they did what you're doing with your boy, and you just like challenge them to figure it out, because kids are resourceful. They will figure it out.
There's a really good book, Gabriel. It's called Hard Times Create Strong Men. Have you read it?
No, but that title sounds familiar. I'm trying to picture it too.
And I mean, I don't want to ruin the book, but it's about a cycle.
The fourth turning.
Yeah, exactly. So, yes. I mean, fuck it, I'm just gonna say it. But so hard times create strong men, right? And then now we have strong men. Strong men work and they create good times. Good times, end result, create weak men.
Amen.
Create hard times, right? So that's how the whole thing kind of works. And I think
That's right.
I mean, when you step take a moment and you step back and you look at the overall picture, I mean, I think it makes perfect sense. But and now imagine this: as entrepreneurs, we have the ability to be, strong in good times. Like that, I mean, that's just like stupid good, and that's where we're at. We're gonna take advantage of that. Like, what's the point? Yeah, mindset, man. I can spend days.
Yeah. This is good. I hope that people are here listening and they haven't checked out, because this gets heavy, and your nature, our nature is such that we want this, right? We want to be challenged. We know we grow through discomfort. I know that that's not necessarily everybody. I know it's probably most of your listeners. And if you're still listening, we've been talking to you this whole time, and you know it. You know this felt true. What you've been hearing felt true. And so that's why you've stuck around. If you've already tapped out and you've blamed it on my intensity or your intensity, or like he said shit one too many times, like you tapped out because you wanted to tap out. You didn't tap out because of that.
Yeah, I mean, most of our problems are an us problem, not the other person. Like whenever we have a reaction, something happens, we're reacting to something that's within us, not within the outside world. Oftentimes, right? Yeah, but I completely agree, man. So let's move into the business and strategy, type of conversation. You're huge on systems. You've obviously been able to create wealth and a good solid operation in, I mean, one of the hardest industries, especially in like heavy construction, heavy remodels, and that sort of thing. I mean, I've jumped into those twice, and it's really not my cup of tea. It's like, for me, it's like, oh, okay, cool. I'd rather do, light, fix and flip type of stuff, and then just focus on other stuff, right? The other things that I enjoy. But it's hard. I appreciate how hard it can be to build something like that. So you're big on systems. Tell me how you got started, and as when you sold your business, did you jump into it again as a one-man operation and started just putting deals together and then build up from there? And how did that become an actual sustainable business like the one that had?
So the first deal is the deal that sparks all this. I get into a project. I don't know what I don't know. I intend to do kitchen, 2 bathrooms, and some paint carpet. I bring in a bunch of demo guys, and I don't manage them properly. And at the end of the first week, I showed up on a Saturday and I'm standing in the house and I'm like, what the fuck happened here? The whole house was demoed. They'd gutted the house, and it was a little bit each day. Like each day was one more wall, one more cased opening missing, one more door. And so I wasn't putting it all together till that day when there was no noise and it was just me. And then I'm in there crying, like, what did I just do? And so what it ultimately forced me to do was reevaluate what I had intended to do there, because what I did have was the best house, the worst house on the best street in a particular town. And so gutting the whole thing was actually the right play from the very beginning. I just didn't know what I didn't know. So that project, maybe we would have done 20 or 30K on the rehab. We wound up doing 82K on the rehab. And that changed everything for me, because I realized, wait a second, like it's not that much heavier of a lift. Like we ultimately went on to do that was a full gut reno. Then we did an add a level. Then we did a big addition and an add a level. Then we did new construction over the course of a couple of years. That's how it evolved. That's how it progressed. But the blinders came off on that very first deal, because everybody else in my market was just doing cosmetic rehabs, and they're making 17,000, 23,000, 32,000. And so I come out of the gate and crush it on this first deal, almost by mistake. And then said, wait a second, like, what if I intentionally do this? And that's it. We don't do anything that we can't model in 6 figures. We won't touch it. That's our model. Those are the deals we do.
And you were talking about value add rehabs, right? That's what you call them, at a level. Break that down, simplify that for me actually, and the audience.
Yeah. So around the country, they're called add a levels or pop tops. I use this all like encompassing term. I call it value add construction heavy rehabbing. It's just a heavier lift. You call them big boy rehabs. That's what they are. We force appreciation because we create more square footage, whether that's on top of the existing house. We take a cape, a ranch or a bungalow, we rip the roof off and we double the square footage by going up, or we go back and we add a family room, or we extend a kitchen. And then sometimes we go up over that as well. That's the model. And so the reason I think a lot of people don't see it is because they don't know it. You know, this might be the first time someone on your, you know, one of your audience is listening and hearing this. They're like, whoa, like that just opened the door for them. Now they go dig in, right? And we have places where they can go do that. But like Ada Levels Pop Tops, what's he talking about? Let me look at this. Let me see if this works in my market, because it doesn't work everywhere. But where it does work, it's really profitable, and more so than cosmetic rehabs. I just think the time, the energy, the effort, the dollars you have to spend on these types of rehabs, they don't just generate you like a commensurate linear return. They generate you an exponential return. Like we're talking 200 and 300K rehabs, net profit rehabs here. So, and that's not all of them. I don't want everybody to get crazy and think that that's every deal, right? But that's what's possible. And again, back to what we were saying, like once you've heard and seen it, you cannot unhear it. You cannot unsee it.
Aware.
Yeah.
Aware. Yeah, we can bring awareness about awesome shit like that. I mean, I think we're doing our job. So you have, how do you keep it sustainable? I mean, you're doing big, massive rehabs, and obviously you started, you know, as a one-man show, and then you started hiring contractors. Now you have something, because you do have that fifth bucket, which is freedom, and that fourth bucket, which is financial. I mean, both of those have to work, right, in order for this to be doable for you at your personal level or personal model. So how do you keep it sustainable? How do you keep growing the business, keep it profitable, and then you still have that level of freedom?
Yeah. So we're both students of traction and EOS. So I know this is going to resonate with you, but it's really about the right people in the right seats. It's about delegate and elevate. You know, those are all concepts that you're familiar with. I got to figure out, how do I hand off the things that I ought not be doing? First person you got to bring on is an admin, executive assistant, office manager, call them whatever you want. That's the person that has to start handling payables, has to start calling in utility reconnects, has to start doing any and all things with the city. Like you can't be doing that stuff. And then you fire yourself as admin and you promote yourself to project manager. And then you quickly fire yourself as project manager, right? And you promote yourself to head of marketing. Then you fire yourself as marketing officer, and you promote yourself to integrator, and eventually visionary. And that's where you achieve true freedom, right? You're the visionary, know thyself and be free. Integrator, know thyself and be stressed. So you put an integrator in place to cascade your vision down to the organization. So I know that that's real heady stuff. We're talking like tactically, how does that happen? Hire A players. That's it. Simple as that. Pay them whatever you have to, hire A players, because that's how you're going to really get freedom.
People see payroll as an overhead. It's not an overhead. It's an investment. I think it's an investment for less headaches. It's an investment for less stress. As you as a business owner, or me as a business owner, it's, you know, bonuses and all that stuff. People have their own. One thing that I do in my business is I call them the top three, and it's just top three priorities. I mean, it makes sense, right? I have personal priorities that are important to me. So why not take into account the rest of the team, like your management team? And if you have a company of 180 people, I get it. You can do this, but you can very well tackle your management team with something like this, right? And it's top three. What are your personal top three priorities? And then, for example, I have a couple people in the company. One guy wants to buy a ranch, and he wants to, another guy wants to travel and wants to do this and that. Now I have, some type of connection to the personal stuff. If I'm able to become a vehicle for them, somehow, some way, connect them with somebody I know, pay him, of course, and bonuses and all that stuff, but be a resource for them. Now I'm a vehicle. They're gonna handle their shit. Like they're gonna be buying into the type of company and business that you want to build. So it's firing yourself. It takes a couple of steps, right? Finding the right person, but sometimes you may have the right person. Just the reason why they're motivated may be a little off, and we can come in and do something about that as a business owner.
Yeah. To the point about firing yourself, it's another moral obligation. You as the visionary need to fire yourself, because all you're doing is blocking someone else's success, someone else's growth. You're in the seat that you don't belong in. They belong in that seat because they're an amazing admin. They're an amazing project manager. They're an amazing marketer. Meanwhile, you're in the seat doing shit wrong. You are. And what is it?
Get the fuck out of the way.
Yeah. And people don't because of ego. That's the other thing, right? Like, oh, nobody's going to do it as well as me. Like, are you serious? Like, you think you're that great? Like, I promise you there's a dozen people that can do it better than you. You have your one unique skill. I promise you that. Whatever that gift is, you do that better than 10,000 other people. But that's the only thing you ought to be doing. The rest, you should be putting A players in place to do those things.
Exactly. No, that's that's awesome, man. It's really important, I think, to get highlights and see, this is doable, this is possible. The dream of being an entrepreneur and not playing entrepreneur. A lot of people play entrepreneur, but actually being an entrepreneur, it does take, I mean, call it sacrifice, I call it growth. But it does take commitment. It does take, tenacity. It does take grit, having the ability to go through ups and downs, having the desire to keep pushing yourself, more and more and more. I did a quick video on my YouTube channel not too long ago about how big are you playing? And I think it's entrepreneurs, we keep putting ourselves on that seat, and we have that, that's one of the questions that, keep popping up. If the drive goes down, if you feel unmotivated, first question to me is, am I playing big enough? Like, is there something else I should be doing? Am I not tapping into my talents and into my zone of genius? Like, what's going on, right? But how big am I playing? What you do is you dial it up a little bit, and then guess what? You're motivated.
Yeah, you're scared, and you're uncomfortable, and that's how you're forced to grow.
Yeah, it's hard to do.
I don't want to be addressing the same problems and challenges this time next year. For me, I'm in a rush to get to the next version of me. Like, it's a crisis. Like, it's critical that I grow into the next version of me. If this time next year I'm still fighting the same battles, having the same challenges, the same problems at work, something's wrong. Like, I stopped growing. I got bored, probably is what it is. So, it's critical for me that I continue to grow.
I'm sure you get this too, but I get the question, like, why? Why are you always doing like different things? Why are you pushing so hard? Why are you trying to, just dominate the world? And I mean, it's not that, right? But like, I'm always busy. I'm always doing stuff. Like, I really sat down and thought about it because I can. Because why not? Like, right now, I want that in my life. It's a phase of life, right? It's like, why the fuck else am I gonna do? Like, just sit there? Like,
yeah. Well, people haven't spent time really thinking about it. Like, what's your ethos? What's your mission statement? Like, I spent time crafting a mission statement that guides everything I do. The purpose of my life is to be a good and faithful servant, to enjoy this beautiful gift of breath with which I have been blessed, and to show genuine compassion for myself and others. That's it. That's my ethos. Everything I do has to revolve around that. And if you don't have an ethos, then, like, sure, why would you? Like, why? I don't need any more money. I don't need any more toys. Like, I could stop, but I want to create impact. I want to help 50 people. My new mandate is to help 50 people quit their jobs. Like, I want to get 50 people out of the cube. And we're starting to see that happen, like, that'll feed your soul, man. When someone sends you a text, says, "Oof, I'm getting emotional." Someone says, "I've been in this job for 10 years. I hated the last 7, and you helped me get out of there." Like, that's big stuff, man. Then you're seeing pictures of him at the park with his kids the next week when he hasn't been able to do that for a decade. That's big stuff. That's why a lot of us do what we do.
Yeah, we know it exists, right? And spreading the word it's like you say, it's a responsibility at this point. It's
it's a moral obligation.
It's not just only a promise of a better life. It's a process of empowerment that needs to go along with it. Sometimes people need, just a little bit of a push, and that's it. And we can be a catalyst or something like that. If they can sit down and listen to your conversation, for example, on this podcast, and say, "Oh shit, like, I was in a restaurant business, or I'm in a brown cubicle too. Like, I can, I can be, doing all this, amazing stuff that I know that I can. I'm capable." It comes back to belief and really betting on yourself at the end of it.
Yes.
So, I love it, man. I mean, thank you so much. It's your story is incredible. The progression that you've taken throughout, time, going from a corporate and cubicle, and then education, and then building businesses and all that stuff. I mean, you're well versed in multiple different areas. So I mean, that's amazing to see. If somebody wants to get a hold of you and I don't know, just have a conversation. And I know that you also do, you also coach as well. I mean, for fix and flips, I want you to put some information out on that and tell us about how that works. And if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, like, how does that happen?
Yeah. I mean, the best place to start is my hub, is my website. It's GabeDaSilva.com. You can start there. From there, you can find your way to whatever social media platform you prefer and message me there. I still field all my own messages, so it'll be me responding. If you find your way to YouTube, if you're early in your journey and you want to see what fix and flips, what ADA levels in particular are all about, there's a YouTube series called The Build. It's 16 episodes. We had someone shadow me for 6 months, and we essentially did a day in the lifestyle series. So you can see what fix and flip is all about, what ADA levels in particular are all about. And that's on YouTube. That's free. If you're a little bit further along in your journey.
Is it on your channel, on your YouTube channel?
Yeah, it's on my YouTube channel. And they can link to it from there. Yeah, Gabe DaSilva. And then one other thing I'd say is, if you're a little bit further along in your journey and you're hitting this wall and you're frustrated with the flips, and you are doing those like smaller net profit rehabs and you want something bigger, you're probably ready for, one of our in-person events or workshops or something like that, then reach out to me about that stuff as well. Like, we have a private Facebook group where people are interacting, sharing proposals, vetting deals, doing stuff like that. Again, like, this isn't about selling anything. It's about empowering people to take action. And so, like, I have courses and books and things like that, but most of that stuff's available for free on my website.
Cool. And I understand that you wrote a book, right? As well. With
yeah.
This whole document.
It's here over my shoulder. So it's called the Flip Tips book, and it's and that book's actually available for free on the website. Just, we trade your email for that book. That's it. But it's 100 of the first 3 years in business. It's the 100 mistakes I made in the first 3 years. I was diligent about taking pictures of them because I didn't want to make the same mistakes twice. And then when I hit 100, I was like, damn, I made a lot of mistakes. But I was also like, let me bind these into a book, because there's hundreds of thousands of dollars of mistakes made there. And this book, if you find one or two that you can avoid, I mean, certainly it's free, so it pays for itself. But I'd encourage people to tap in there. That's a great place to start as well.
Thank you so much, man. I mean, that's huge value. So I'll make sure to drop all those links in the show notes, and people can go to them. Absolutely, take advantage of this. I mean, this is, again, if at the very least, is going to be a different perspective on perhaps the operation that you already have running. Right? If you're looking to tap into entrepreneurship, it's a good way to get into it. Real estate is a great vehicle. I always, say that, and I stand by it. There's so many different ways to make stuff happen through the vehicle of real estate. So, with that being said, before we sign off, this is my favorite question. If you were walking down the street and you ran into 17-year-old Gabriel DaSilva, what would you tell that kid?
17's a hard age. I've done this with my 28-year-old self, but I guess doing this with my 17 or 18-year-old self, that went on to be a really dark decade for me. I wasted a lot of time between 17 and 27 or 18 and 28. I would have gotten better friends, I would say, because you're so easily influenced at that age, that you are like that whole thing. Like, you are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. At that age, it couldn't be truer. You stop listening to your parents and your teachers, and you really do become a product of your surroundings. And I was surrounded by idiots, frankly. So I became an idiot. And so that decade is lost. It's kind of a blur. And so that's what I would say is, like, hey, level up your friend circle now. Don't wait, because I didn't do that till 28. And look at what my life looks like now versus then. So yeah, that's a good piece of advice for young Gabe.
Gabe, I love it, man. You've been awesome. Thank you so much for taking part of this and dropping all your nuggets with no reservations here. I appreciate it, brother. There you guys have it. Another episode of the CEO Pulse podcast, where you got the real, the raw, and the mind of entrepreneurship. Stay focused. You got boom.